Hello, fellow rebels. Welcome from the Rebel Toolbox and Rebel Engine community. Today we have Marcel
Hiya.
and we have myself, Daniela, to give you the last update of 2024. So our next community event will be held online on Jitsi again on the second Tuesday of January, and I hope we see you then. So, being the last of the year, let's go into our updates without further ado. So, from my side, from the community and training side of things, I have come to realize that the training videos will need a bit more attention. So, the idea is still the same, that I, as a lesser technical person, will go through and try and use Rebel Engine to create a simple game. And as I reported previously, the idea for the game is there. It's rather small and simple, as you would just to show off the game engine. And now I'm working through the process of setting up the individual tutorials and iron out any problems that I find along the way. And that is where I need to learn a little bit more. Where we are working on Rebel Engine to make it the best engine for game developers like myself that may or may not have a technical background, but in essence, to reach as many people who would like to start making games themselves.
Sounds good.
And from your side, Marcel?
Well, two main things that I've been working on recently. The first is the projects manager. So that's the tool that you originally get when you first log in. I've spent quite a bit of time refactoring projects manager to make it easier to maintain, easier to update, and basically unwinding a lot of the spaghetti that's found in the projects manager. So that step is complete. One of the main reasons for looking at projects manager is because we want to add an ability to import projects from other game engines and make it easier for people to migrate to Rebel Engine. So, for example, Godot, which is the game engine that Rebel Engine is based upon, to be able to open your Godot game project in Rebel Engine and be able to just start working on it as if it was opened and created in Rebel Engine itself. So there will be a tool to be able to convert your Godot game to a Rebel game, and that will be done within the projects manager. So you basically say, yes, I want to open up a Godot game, and it will convert or prompt you first, but then convert your game to a Rebel game. So there's not a lot of changes between Godot and Rebel as far as opening games are concerned, but it's getting to this point where we do actually need a conversion tool. The ability to convert your Godot game to a Rebel game is still quite simple, but the next steps will involve a few more changes going forward. So we want to be able to start creating that tool and be able to update the tool every time we make a change that will make it that will require you to upgrade your project to a Rebel project. So that was the motivation behind looking at Projects Manager first as a tool to try and improve the way the engine has been coded and looking at the software. So that work is basically complete, and we can now start looking at creating the updates to the projects that you can upgrade an existing project. And it won't be limited to Godot. We want to be able to look at other game projects as well, so that people can make an easy conversion. I know personally from my personal experience, having used, for example, Unity in the past, that the way the games are created are very similar, but it's almost impossible to try and migrate from that game engine to another. But if we can look at the project files and migrate them, we should be able to do it. This is not unique to just the game engines. Obviously, any tools that are used to create game assets, for example, we also need conversion tools. So those conversion tools, a lot of those conversion tools already exist in Rebel Engine. An example is the FBX file format for your 3D models, or your Blender format for your 3D models. Those can all be imported directly into Rebel Engine. But so being able to convert from one file format to another is standard and normal. Just being able to convert from one game engine project to another is missing at the moment. So we'd like to work on that and make it a lot easier for people to move to to Rebel Engine. So that's what I've been working on in the last few weeks. And like I said, glad to say that the first step of unraveling the spaghetti code that was there before is basically complete now. The second major update, something that came up this week. If anyone's been trying to build Rebel Engine on for Linux 32-bit, and you're on, for example, Ubuntu, the latest version of Ubuntu 22.04 won't allow you to build the Linux 32-bit. The reason for that is that Ubuntu stopped supporting 32-bit with version 18.04. In other words, back in 2018, April 2018, which is where the 18.04 comes from. That was the last version to support 32 bits. Now we've been able to continue to build Rebel Engine on later versions of Ubuntu because the underlying drivers and libraries, Linux libraries that we've been using haven't been updated. But with the latest version of 22.04, those driving libraries have been updated, but they haven't been backported to the 32-bit versions. So you can no longer build Rebel Engine for 32-bit on the latest version of Ubuntu. So we can continue to build 32-bit versions of Rebel Engine using an older version of Ubuntu, but I think going forward we need to accept that basically 32-bit builds are dead. Apple has stopped supporting 32 bits back in 2018. Android doesn't produce phones that run on 32 bits since 2018. As I said already, Ubuntu stopped supporting 32 bits back in 2018. Right? This is 5 years ago, or at least it will be 5 years ago next year, which is next month. So I think 5 years of backward support for 32-bit platforms is long enough. And I think what we need to do is stop trying to continue to build 32 bits when I personally don't have any hardware that runs 32 bits. I can't test whether it actually runs 32 bits on Linux, on Windows, on Android, because we don't have that hardware. We only have 64-bit hardware, and if you try and buy new hardware, it will be 64-bit because the hardware nobody's been producing 32-bit hardware since 2018. So I think it's a good time, if we say at the end of 2024, to end support for 32 bits on Rebel Engine and start working and focusing purely on the 64-bit platforms. I don't know. What do you think from a user's perspective? Have you got any questions?
Personally, again, if you're not as technical as most game developers or game engine developers, a lot of end users would not necessarily know. And that's why, personally, I thought that 32-bit has been a thing of the past for a few years.
Yeah.
And having game engines that are backwards compatible is great, but for how long? Personally, think we ought to be pragmatic. I agree with you that we should focus on the 64-bit because that's what everyone is using now.
Exactly. Okay. I mean, if anybody from the community thinks that there's a reason to keep 32 bits beyond the end of this year, then please let us know, because we want to know if anybody is actually still producing games for 32-bit platforms. I know that the web platform, for example, is designed to be running on 32-bit because that's the way the engine is designed. But we should also be moving on to 64-bit because the backwards compatibility just for the web engine is not practical going forward. And let's focus on 64 bits throughout.
Yes, and that's a very good point. Do get in touch if you want to keep 32-bit. At the same time, if you want to keep it up, please come with a suggestion and a proposal on how we're going to do that. It really would help us, as well as it may help your community as well, to build a collaboration whereby you get the backwards compatibility and we can learn from your expertise as well. So do get in touch. Don't be limited to 2024. Feel free. If you find this video in a year's time, still get in touch and just see what we can do.
Exactly. So especially people from poorer communities where that may be the only hardware they have access to. If they are building games with Rebel Engine, they'd like the Rebel Engine to continue to be 32-bit supportable because they are still using old versions of operating systems on their PCs because, again, they can't upgrade the operating system. Do they still want an old version of Rebel Engine that they can use for 32-bit? And if that's the case, if there's enough demand, then yes, we will continue to find ways to build 32 bits, but we also need somebody with 32-bit hardware to be able to maintain that 32-bit, to be able to test it and be able to confirm that when we make changes, that those changes will work on 32 bits going forward. So we do need someone to take ownership of the 32-bit platform because they need it for themselves, going forward, and just have a chat with us, so see what we can work out. But if you've got 32-bit hardware and that you want to run Rebel Engine on, please let us know.
Yes. And if you have any other questions, ideas, thoughts, or want to get involved, get in touch. We also would love to have more people on the call here, as well as have private conversations with anyone out there who would be interested in joining our community. The purpose of Rebel Toolbox is to create one of the best game engines and associated tools for the community out there. It is a free and open source software project, meaning it's available to everyone forever, free to use, free to make products and games, as well as the games will be free. So you don't have to pay us anything. However, if you want to help our community, we do appreciate donations. Go to our website, rebeltoolbox.com. Either sign up via Patreon as a member, or if you only want to contribute as a one-off donation, please support us via Stripe, again via rebeltoolbox.com. If you want to give us so much money you'd rather send it directly, get in touch. We're still looking for corporate sponsors as well, or if you prefer to donate your time and expertise, again, get in touch. We have a lot of areas where we would need expertise and knowledge from anyone out there who would like to contribute. Our focus is on being very collaborative and very inclusive to make sure that every voice is being heard. We don't care what people's skin color is, what the background is, the usual where you're from is not important to us. What's important to us is to create a good, pleasant environment and community where everyone can flourish and be the best.
Yeah. And we don't just need technical contributions either. And I know, needing someone to maintain 32 bits, but it's really somebody to say that they use it on 32 bits so that when they're testing it, they test it for us. They're using Rebel Engine to create games and they'd be able to test changes as they come through. We specifically create builds that are updated as we create updates, so you can continue to test them without having to build it yourself. But if there is a demand for 32-bit builds, then please let us know and we will continue to create them.
Yes. That was everything from me for today. Is there anything else, anything else on top of it?
No, I think that's the two main points. We're starting to make progress, and I think 2025 will be a good year for getting Rebel Engine to version 1. I know I said end of 2024 we should have version 1. Circumstances have dictated otherwise, but yes, hopefully we can get version 1 out there and get people to start using it. But I'm still very excited about this project. I am very enthused by getting the projects manager tool to a point where it's now easier to maintain and update and add functionality without worrying about making a change here and breaking things. So that's all positive, and we should be able to do that with the rest of Rebel Engine going forward as well.
Yes. Possibly one thing from a personal perspective, from my personal perspective, anyone who's watching those videos will have noticed the different backgrounds, different rooms every single time. That will stop now in 2025. And instead of creating different backgrounds to the tapestry of my life, I will be a lot more stable, and that means I can focus a lot more time on the Rebel project, reaching out to more people and communities, trying to raise awareness that Rebel exists, as well as get the education platform in place, as well as try and produce some of my own little games that I've always wanted to do, for reflecting my view of the world and where I think we are currently or we are going to. So I know it's been a long time in the making, but trust me, 2025 will be an incredibly productive year for Rebel, and we will, in my opinion, we will take off for sure. And it's going to be really exciting to finally have the time and the bandwidth to focus my attention on it.
Yeah, sounds good.
And with that, I wish everyone a happy end to 2024. Whichever holidays, ceremonies, celebrations, or just a coffee or drinks round at the weekend, whatever you celebrate this time of year, have a fantastic time, a fantastic closing out of 2024. Don't forget to look back and celebrate all the small and big wins you've had, and we will see you in 2025.
Awesome.
Bye bye.
Bye.